Good evening, everyone. Prithvi, do you have any doubts? You can unmute and ask right now.
I don't have any doubt, ma'am. I just want to give a small presentation to all over present over here. I have made an project and I want to show all of you.
Yes, I'm listening. Go ahead.
So that project basically assistant and
Great.
Siri.
I think I can understand what you want to do. I'll just allow you to have 5 minutes to present yourselves. We have a speaker here, Mr. Aditya Thakur. So let him conduct his session first, then we can go ahead with yours. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, great.
I wanted to ask, like, should I start then, or are we waiting?
Okay, good evening, sir. I think you can start right now, like just to brief about yourselves. Then we are asking the students to join it. Then.
Okay, awesome. So I'll go and share my screen. Hi, Amanjot. How are you? Screen shared. Give me a minute. Okay, awesome. So I hope my screen is visible. Today, like, we all have gathered here for the Flutter Forward Extended event. It's with the like we'll talk about starting right off. Like, we'll talk about what Flutter is, how do you build applications in it, and we'll also cover like the basics of Flutter development, a small crash course on how can you get started building with Flutter, and lastly I would come to some projects that you can do, and maybe take up your questions and then talk about like where to go from here. So Flutter Forward, the name came from the event that was conducted in Nairobi, Kenya. So where the Flutter team discussed where the framework is going, and we'll talk about what it is in a minute. So starting right off with myself, I am Aditya Thakur. I work as developer advocate at 100ms. So it's a audio video SDK company. We help folks like you, developers, integrate live audio video into their apps. I have 8,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I create content around Flutter, Python, and such. I am active in the community, so I have a community of my own. And other than that, I speak at events like Flutter Vikings, uh, the Google I/O Extended. Previously, I have been a contributor to open source projects like the Flutter Community Plus plugins and the Flutter Fire repository, which is used to integrate Flutter with Google's Firebase, more appropriately Firestore. So I've been a contributor there. Uh, Jumping into it, if we like don't have any other issues. Yes, and feel free to like unmute and ask any questions throughout the event. What I want to start right off is like when you're using your mobile device, chances are that you spend a lot of time on a mobile application instead of like simply browsing on like a Chrome, Safari, and other such. So if you have to watch videos, there are apps for that. If you want to like talk to someone, message someone, there are social media apps for that. And even beyond that, you can like read news through applications. So a lot of time that you would spend on your mobile device is largely spent on these mobile applications. This brings us to building for mobile particularly, and there are always these two operating systems that you need to target as a mobile developer. So if you are in your like first or second year thinking of starting out with mobile development, so you can either like build for Android, build for iOS, and largely when people start out, they start off with Android development. So it's easier to download like the Android Studio and drag and drop some elements on screen to build out like a layout. Then write some code maybe in your programming language like Java or Kotlin and ship your application to Play Store. The problem with this full path is once you do this, you can only create applications for Android. And a lot of people out there also have iOS devices, and you might want to also have them use your application. So when I started with Flutter, it has been 2 years now. I've been working with Flutter, and when I first started, I was building this application for a mental health club on campus. The problem was when we started building our application on Android Studio, the application would ship out only to Play Store. That means only people with Android devices could download it then. And we also had a lot of people, like a lot of college students on our campus who used iOS devices, so who had like an iPhone, and we also wanted them to try out the application. That is when like we discovered Flutter, and we have like since built applications with it. And Flutter also helps you build for the web. So if you want, like, you can build a landing page for your application, like we have one here. So this is the application. You can build a landing page where you can have people sign up for your app even before it's released. The advantage with Flutter is like it helps you, it is a cross platform framework, so which means it can help you build for multiple platforms using the same code base. And if you are building like apps for mobile, you can use Flutter. If you are building apps for web, you can use Flutter. Even if you are building apps for desktop, you can use Flutter, which is like a very big advantage. Right now it caters to 6 different operating systems. So on the desktop side, we have Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. You can build applications for web, and there are the 2 mobile operating systems, iOS and Android. There are a lot of benefits to using Flutter, which I want to highlight in this session. Number one is high velocity development. So when you're building applications with Flutter, you would notice like you can quickly see changes on screen. As you type code, you can see what it would look like on an actual app running, which offers you like very fast development experience. There is an expressive and flexible toolkit. So Flutter is a like a front end framework, you can call it. So it has a lot of options. Like it lets you take control of every pixel on screen, so you can customize a lot of things. You have this power to create beautiful user interfaces. And lastly, the experience of your application for the end user would largely be what it is like on a native app. So Flutter is a cross-platform framework. You can build for iOS and Android, but the experience at the end for the user would almost be similar to what it is like with native Android or iOS if you write code in that. And you can also use Flutter to build applications for embedded devices. There are some very cool examples put out by the community. One is this by Roman, who built out like a ID card. So this is a LED device he purchased of Alibaba, and he has built a Flutter application to run on it. So how this works is like like the application is you can interact with it. So if he ever goes to a conference, people can touch his ID card and swipe it and find links to his socials on there. So there is a whole video of it that you can check out on his Twitter. And there are also examples where Flutter was used to build applications for like Wear OS. So if you have a watch that runs Wear OS, you can connect it to your Android Studio ID and run a Flutter app on that. This is actually a game built by Renan using the Flame engine in Flutter. So we'll talk about how you can do this, like how do you start out with the Flutter, like what it is. And before we jump right into it, this week I am talking at a lot of Flutter extended events. And if you are like listening in, tuned in right now, if you want to participate, you can take part in this giveaway. So we are giving away 2 courses of the Flutter and Dart Bootcamp, the very same course that I used to start out my Flutter journey. And there's also a one-on-one mentorship call. So I can only give you my most valuable resource, which is time. And if you want to take part in this, you can go over to adityathakor.in/giveaway, fill out the form, and we'll announce the winners by 20th, because the Flutter Forward extended events would continue until 15th, and then the nearest Sunday, or I think nearest Saturday, we'll announce this on that, I guess. So yeah, if you want to participate, fill out this form really quickly. And while you do that, we'll jump into a little bit about Flutter. How do you start out with it? So to start with Flutter development, I think the first obvious step would be going over to their website, flutter.dev. And here, like they have mentioned a lot of things. They have mentioned apps that use Flutter. They have mentioned a little bit about Flutter. So it's an open source framework by Google. It helps you build like beautiful, natively compiled, multi-platform applications using one single code base. And I'll also show you that in action. You can reach users on multiple screens. Since you're building for Windows, for web, for mobile devices, like you can reach your users everywhere. For startup founders or like for early age startups, this is a very big advantage because like they can build an application that can be used by people across platforms, so it generally helps them. And what we can also see here is this some of the companies that use Flutter. So fun fact, if you are using Google Pay for sending out payments, the application is actually built out in Flutter, and it's also built by Google India here for the world. Like they started building it used like by the Google team here in India itself. And now it is being used like in US as well, and other countries worldwide. And even beyond that, the Google Classroom uses Flutter. So if you were in quarantine using Google Classroom, I would say like the latest updates to it use Flutter to ship the application. There is a good story about Tencent using it for PUBG. So a lot of people don't believe it, but like PUBG's community module was written in Flutter, and there is a video by their team on how they built it. There are apps like Philips Hue, which is like a very nice front end focused application that also uses Flutter. So if you have to like talk about examples, and we'll also talk about some examples back here at home in India that use Flutter. So we'll come to that in a bit. But starting out with Flutter, the first step, go over to their website and click on Get Started. So this should take you to a page that helps you install Flutter. Now, depending on your operating system, let us say you're on Windows, Mac OS, you can, choose the installation guide. I would recommend when you're just starting out to watch like a dedicated video on Flutter installation, because setup might get messy, and I feel Flutter installation is the only step, like which is the hurdle between you learning Flutter, because Flutter is very easy to work with. And Windows install, this should take you to this guide, and you have to download Flutter as a zip file, extract it, and then add it to your path. This would get you the Flutter SDK. Then you might have to do some like platform installations, like for Android you might need the Android SDK. You can simply download Android Studio for that. Like it would get you the Android SDK, also help you set up emulator. Talking about IDEs, when you're writing code, you need a IDE to write code in. For Flutter, you can either use Android Studio or you can use VS Code. So if you're coming from web, if you have previous development experience, if you find like if you think that your device cannot support heavy software like Android Studio, you can always use VS Code. Uh, and For beginners, although I would recommend you go ahead with Android Studio, because Android Studio makes the whole installation process really simple. So if you're just starting out, I would recommend Android Studio. But if you're like a full-fledged developer, if you know your way around things, then go ahead with VS Code. There wouldn't be a problem as such. My personal recommendation, Android Studio. So coming back a bit here, like you can select your operating system. You want to go with Mac, you want to go with Windows, you can download it. Once you have Flutter set up, so I have Flutter on my device right now. And if I'll just zoom in this command terminal a bit, I can run a command like, I'll first navigate to my desktop. I always forget this during sessions, but I'll come here on my desktop and run the Flutter create command. So this creates a new Flutter project. You'll type in Flutter create and then the name of your app. So let us say new app for now. So this is the name of the project that you want to create. And if you run this command, it would like write some code for you. So it wrote like 129 files for me, and it would create a new Flutter project. So this is the new app, and it has some files if you'll see. one thing that I want you to notice is like there are like platform specific folders. So there is Android folder, there is iOS folder, there is also a Linux Mac OS folder here, and a Windows folder, and also a web folder. So if you create a new Flutter project, this comes with all these folders. Now you'll ask me, like, do we have to write code for all of these? Like, do if I am running app on Android, do I have to write Android and such code? So to answer that, I'll just quickly open this Flutter project in like VS Code. I'll go over to my desktop and open this new app right here. It again has the same folder like Android, iOS, Mac OS, Web, Linux. When working with Flutter, you don't have to write code for all these specific platforms. All you have to do is go down to this lib folder. So lib is a folder I'm talking about. Inside this, you'll find something main.dart. So this is like your main file. And as with any programming language, it has like main function, the first function to receive control, and all your code would go inside this lib folder. So just that. So I think it modifies the link when you share this, when you share the hosted version of this. So you can do dart.dev, docs, and here you'll have something called the language tour. So this is like a very simple language tour of the Dart programming language. And what it will show you is the how simple code is written in Dart. So what you will notice, like, to print out something, we write in print and then pass it the string value that we want to print out. Like print the number, and you can tell it the number that you want to print out. And how do we store numbers and store a number there? So you can use var keyword and name of the variable and store the number, and then you can just print it out. So this is like a very basic Dart program, and this page has other info as well, like built-in data types, what all data types are available in Dart to use, and how do you do control flow statements, if else in Dart, and such examples. So this page has a tour of the Dart programming language that you can refer, and it's a very simple language, very simple and a very powerful one actually to work with. Uh, Now it is a client optimized language for fast apps on any platform. You can even use Dart with Angular to build like web apps. Uh, what I want to have to worry about learning it uh, on the side. You can cover it in the course itself. So we talked about how to create a new Flutter project. Now we'll break down each element for you to tell you like how coding is actually done in Flutter. This brings us to one of the most fun parts of this particular workshop, which is the Flutter crash course. Now, in Flutter, the one thing that you have to remember is everything is a widget. Now, this is not like an official statement. I don't know why I have written that, but this is not like an official statement. But everything is a widget in the sense, like, you can think of widgets as Lego blocks. So you put one on top of the other and you will have like a complete application built out. So as mobile developer, this would be your canvas. You have like an empty mobile screen that you have to write some code in to show something on screen. We assume that. And you work for a company. Let us say you are starting out as a Flutter intern and you work with this company, and the manager or someone, one of your team leads tells you to add some text. In Flutter, we would use the text widget to do this. And how would that look like? So you'll type in text, open up round braces, tell it the value that you want to show on screen. So in this case, I want to show hello Aditya on screen, and this widget would be written in the Dart programming language, and Flutter would use that code to show hello Aditya on screen. All right. So text, you can think of it as a class. The constructor would be something like string data. And this basic widget example. Now, this might vary on an actual app, but all you have to remember is when you're typing in text, you type in text. When you want to like show text on screen, you type in text, you open these braces and pass in the string value that you want to show, and it will do that for you. Similarly, let us imagine a case you're told to add an image on screen. How would that look like? So we did the same for text. We wanted to show some text, so we typed in text and passed in the string value. Similarly, for an image, all you have to do is type in image and then tell it which image that you want to show on screen. In our case, we are like pulling this image from internet, so we are using something called network image, and we are passing in the URL where this image is, and that would do it. So you type in image, open these braces, and tell it the image that you want to show. So with this, what we know is like Flutter uses these widgets as the building blocks, and they are very simple to remember too. Like for text, you just have to type in text. For image, this is image. And you do not have to necessarily memorize all these widgets. So I'll again go back to flutter.dev, go down to documentation, and here you will see something called a widgets catalog. Now then text and you pass in the string value that you want to show, and it does that for you. Similarly, we talked about the image widget. So if I come back to the same widgets catalog, you'll see something like assets, images, and icon widgets. And you can find the image widget here. So this should tell you how to add an image on screen. Again, it types in image and it tells it the image it wants to show. So this image owl.jpg is available on this github.io and Flutter's GitHub, and you can show this image on like inside your application using this URL. So that is how it majorly works. You can even add some icons, and if you want to do like animations and stuff in Flutter, there are like widgets for that. So there are a lot of widget options available to try out, especially in Flutter. Again, we'll come back to the presentation, and so you must be familiar with like the basic WhatsApp UI. Like a lot of us use WhatsApp to communicate with others. And how would if you have to break down this particular layout, if you are like given to told to build a WhatsApp clone, how would you do that in Flutter? So what I want you to do is visualize all the different components or widgets that are there on screen. So one of them is the app bar on top, and you see like there are normally profile pictures, and this layout repeats. Like you have your first contact, and then second, then third, then fourth in a vertical list. So you can break this complete view in like this, something like this. So you have your app bar, then you also have a tab that lets you select, but let's not focus on that. Then you have each of these elements repeated one under the other in like a vertical fashion, and then we have a floating action button, or a button that you can click on to create a new chart. Why I'm talking about this is because Flutter not only allows you to have just one child. So we saw like the text widget was there. So it was, you can't just put one text inside your application. Therefore, Flutter also allows you to have like multiple widgets shown on screen. So one such example of this is the column widget. And what it does is it takes in a list of these widgets. Let us say you want to show three different texts, one under the other on your screen. How would that look like? So this is how it would be done. You'll again create the text widget. You type in text, create these brackets, put in the string value that you want to show. Like in our case, this is Flutter crash course. So Flutter crash course. And you can wrap this. If you want to show two images on side of each other, you have to memorize them at all. Like I've been working with Flutter for a long time, and I don't know any widgets by heart. It's sometimes like when I'm writing code, I remember, okay, last time I used this, or when I was building something, I used that, and I look it up how to use it again, and that mostly gets the job done. And these widgets are the building block. Think of them as Lego bricks. Like you can put one on top of the other to build out a whole app. You do not again have to memorize all of them. This is not exam. You don't have to memorize them. You can always look up the widgets catalog, and you can, to use a widget, you have to just type in the name and specify the properties that you have to use, and that will do the job. So before I come to the community part of it, what I'll do is I'll come back to the project that I had created, right? So what you will see inside this project is we have our main function. So this is our main function. It is the first function to get control. So whenever you are writing code, the first is the main function. So you it is something to run app, and it's telling it to run something on like the run the first widget. So this my app is the first widget to be shown on screen. So I'll also launch this application. I'll run my uh, Android emulator. I'll close this terminal. So my Android emulator is here, and I'll run this application on it. So if I open these two side by side, I can click on run. This should take some time to launch the application. So what should happen is like whenever I am running this application, control would go to this main function. It would ask it like, what should I do now? And it tells it to run app. So run app is a function. And is it a function? No, it's also, yeah, it is a function that takes in the first widget. And in our case, my app is the first widget. So this is something that the Flutter team has done. So this code is written by the Flutter team, and there are also some comments here to help you how to navigate it. But let's just wait for it to run. And what I want you to see is when it's just scrolling through, you'll notice like the same text widget has also been used here. So we talked about this text widget example. They have typed it like, they have opened these brackets, and then they have told it what to show on screen. So there is a string value here, and that is being shown on screen here. So if you can see on the example, you have pushed this button this many times. This is the default application that Flutter projects come with. When you click on the counter, it increments the value by 1. And I can just hide this terminal. So if you click on this plus button, it should increment the counter on screen by 1. Now, talking about the same text widget, let us say if I were to change something here. So if I type in Flutter crash course, and okay, so I typed in Flutter crash course, and I just right now the file is unsaved. If I just save this file, you would see like the changes are immediately shown on screen. So you will see Flutter crash course appear here,